everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we inflict our favorite movies on our friends, talk about them, and wait for the tears to come. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And it's an Austin week, everybody. Insert applause.
Back to regular scheduled programming after our March blindness.
Mm-hmm. And regular scheduled programming in Jen booing you right off the bat.
Well.
Painful, isn't it? So I guess, Austin, you can just tell us what we watched. Tell us why we watched it.
Yeah, we watched Cabaret. I thought it would be a good movie for us to watch. Like I said, we did Meet Me in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. Now we're just kind of continuing the family line here with Liza Minnelli. I really like the songs from this show. I don't have much of a background with it, honestly. I've only seen the movie a couple of times, and I have really mixed feelings on it, which we'll kind of get into. But I saw the show a couple years ago, and it was in Toronto. I love Alan Cumming, and he played the MC in the 1998 revival of it, and so I'm just like kind of madly in love with him and strangely attracted to Alan Cumming as the MC. But we'll get there. And then I just wanted to watch it. I think it's also a good kind of way to slide into some movies that we're going to watch later on. I took a cue from Jen and like some context for things further down the line.
I do not plan on doing that at all.
We don't need context for your movies, Jackie. They're all the exact same.
Are there explosions? Yes.
That's right. Although, I mean, wait for 2 weeks. I got a real doozy coming up for you guys.
Oh, God.
It's a little teaser.
Oh, I'm excited.
You should be.
What are your histories with Cabaret?
I watched Schitt's Creek, and Stevie sang a Cabaret song. And while watching Schitt's Creek and watching Patrick be the MC, when I watched Schitt's Creek, I was like, wow, Patrick, you need to calm down in your portrayal of this MC. Like, you are over the top. Now that I've seen the movie, I get what he was doing.
Yeah.
But experiencing it without knowing this movie at all, I was like, he is awful, and he's a ham, and he sucks. But now I kind of understand it.
Yeah, it's all about the ham.
But I don't appreciate it anymore. And so in regards to this movie, like I knew that Liza Minnelli was in it, and I knew it was about a cabaret, I assumed. And for some reason, I knew it was in like Germany around World War II. But that was it. So my summary is just like cabaret singers, World War II, maybe they're spies, or maybe they're just trying to escape their sad, dreary lives.
Okay.
So
Nice.
close-ish, I guess.
Yeah. So I had actually seen this one, which is rare for one of Austin's movies. Normally I'm like, what is this? But I saw Cabaret only once, and it was maybe like 10 years ago or so. So I felt like I didn't remember it well, and then I wrote my synopsis, and I was like, no, that's pretty much the whole movie. Like, I thought I was missing a huge chunk, but... So I wrote that it's the early 1930s in Germany. Liza Minnelli is a cabaret performer living like a bohemian lifestyle. She has a love triangle with her gay/bi best friend and another man, and I think she has an abortion. And then in the background, it's the rise of fascism, and it ends with Nazis at the cabaret, because it's all like a metaphor for their way of life is over and the war is here.
Yeah, I don't need to do a summary. That's
it. That's
it.
The movie. I really was like, that's all I remember, but there's going to be a whole other thing. And then I watched the movie and I was like, nope, that was all.
Yeah, there's like some other like little subplots with like Natalia and what's his name, Fritz, but
yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Now that you're saying your summary, Jen, I think I missed a lot of this. Okay, we'll have to get there, but I'll bring up some certain points that I think I missed and you guys can explain them to me. Does that sound good? Like every other time we do this podcast, please explain things to me. I need help.
Yeah.
But not yet.
Okay, sure. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the plot. I guess before we dig into the movie, I'll give a little bit of background on the show, provide a little context.
Look at her dancing.
I'm so excited.
You guys like my Deutschland sweatshirt?
Oh my goodness. Every week I'm like, are we supposed to dress for this? But then I never do.
Yeah, so Cabaret was originally a book by Christopher Isherwood called his Berlin Stories. I think they were Goodbye to Berlin, and there was another one as well. But that came out in 1939, and he was a writer in Berlin. Basically, the the Brian character was based on Christopher Isherwood. And then in 1951, it was a play called I Am a Camera. And then in 1955, a movie called I Am a Camera came out based on the play. And then we had the musical, came out in 1966. It ran for 1,165 performances. And what I like about it, and why I'm saying this might be a good forerunner to some of the other musicals that we're going to get to down the line, is that this is kind of a proto-concept musical. We've talked about concept musicals before. Do you guys remember?
Pennies from Heaven?
Basically, a concept musical is a show where the story is less important than the theme, and it could be examining a theme from a variety of perspectives, and everything kind of ties together in like a tapestry rather than like from point A to point B to point C, etc. And it tends to look more at like, rather than looking at like literary sources for points of adaptation, usually they'll draw from like other types of musical theater. So like we have Chicago that bases itself around vaudeville, and Follies, which is a revue, and Pippin, which is a circus. We got a Chorus Line, which will be coming up later on, which is like the Broadway musical itself. And then now, of course, we have Cabaret, which is kind of a take on the Cabaret. Anyways, Hal Prince was the director of the original Broadway show. He's kind of the big name director when it comes to these types of shows. He worked a lot with Sondheim. That's my fun fact. And eventually we'll talk about the movie, I promise. I just wanted to... music is by Kander and Ebb. John Kander and Fred Ebb had a 40-year partnership, and they were really famous for being able to blend these like verbal cliches and like musical pastiches into songs to make them fresh, which is like something that Cabaret does like all the time. And I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got. The plot in the musical is a little bit different. Brian is named Cliff in the musical, and he's American, and Sally is British. So it's very confusing going between the two. There's also like a subplot that's like completely dropped for the movie with Fraulein Schneider, who's like the landlady. She's like engaged to a Jewish grocer, and then they have to break up because she's afraid of being married to someone who's Jewish. But yeah, and what I think makes this really cool is that, again, music obviously, but how music and the narrative are kept completely separate. So this is kind of maybe a musical for people who don't like music.
Got a hard disagree.
Just Austin's like optimistic pause and Jackie just shooting right in there. Like,
I'm sorry, that was too harsh. I didn't hate this, but I think you hit on it with the concept musical. Like, most people who don't like musicals might like this, but you know that I'm too literal and straight line A to B.
Nothing
like,
literal about this movie.
So yeah, I think this is a musical for people who don't like musicals, who like thinking about their movie. That, unfortunately, is not me. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's not shoving the musical aspect of it down your throat. It's not like we are singing songs about the laundry we are doing. You know, it's completely separate.
In the stage show, there are those numbers, like there are kind of like the book numbers, but in the movie, Fosse was able to completely separate that. He dropped, I think, almost all of them except for Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and all of the music only takes place in the Kit Kat Club, and so you're able to kind of get that juxtaposition a lot more seamless than you can on the stage. But
yeah, it's interesting
the way he was able to adapt it, which we'll talk about, but like I really didn't like at first, but it's grown on me.
See, that's interesting, because I was going to say after I watched this, I was like, I think I'm starting to understand what Austin looks for in musicals more. Because when I think of a musical, I do think of those like big, bombastic, like people singing as they do things with like costumes. And, you know, I think we kind of got into that with like Singing in the Rain a bit. Maybe that's the only one. But other than that, you just really like depressing movies where sometimes someone sings.
Yeah, why do you like a depressing movie like that, Austin?
It's not a depressing movie, depressing musicals, man.
No,
there it is. Yeah,
a depressing movie where they sing.
Yeah, no one ever ends up like better ahead than they were in the beginning of the movie. Austin's movies always have a downward trajectory. Maybe she's a realist? Am I an optimist? Whoa. Am I an optimist, you guys? The good guy always wins. That's like...
Yeah, you're all about good guy, bad guy, good versus evil.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, I do like musicals that are just singing and dancing and like off we go and it's great. Like I do like that, but my favorite musicals tend to be concept musicals. I was reading through one of my books that I have, and like it listed like this chapter was like the metaphor on stage or whatever, and it was like a list of like 6 of my favorite shows. I was like, oh, I see. Like I'm understanding a little more about myself. But should let's I guess dive into the movie. Should we set the stage a little? So it takes place in 1931. Yes, the stage takes place in 1931 Berlin. What did you guys think about the way, like, it's the end of the Weimar Republic, fascism is just starting to take over. At the beginning of the movie, we see Nazis getting kicked out of the club, and kind of gradually it becomes, did that have any, like, resonance with you guys? Or what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the part of the movie I'm more interested in. I was like, I like that it's a story about just, like, the slow creep of fascism and how terrifying it is and how we're living through it again, unfortunately. So, like, that aspect of it I really enjoy. And that, for me, is what stuck out. Like, in my summary, I was like, I remember that it's about fascism and it ends with Nazis in the club.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just heard the way Jen inhaled. Austin wasn't finishing the question, and Jen's like, I want to talk about this so bad. I can tell.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
Well, when you said it, because I was like, I don't know how to pronounce the Weimar Republic, so I was going to make Austin do it because she speaks German, but she started with it, so I was like, now I know how it's pronounced.
Nailed it.
Thank you for saying I speak German. I am 330 some days into my Duolingo streak.
Very
More
impressive.
than me.
Yeah, sorry, I really liked that part too. I think I would have liked it better if it was more.
Yeah.
It was kind of great, like as Jen said, that it was creeping. It was very much these people are living their lives and they have normal problems and relationships and work and money. But in the background, it's happening, which is really cool because that's what's actually happening now and we're witnessing it. And it is what really happened. But as a movie watcher, I would have liked more, I guess. More cinematic Nazi representation, I guess.
What I think is interesting is like so much of the movie is kind of based on this element of like detachment. A lot of the research that I did dove into the themes a little more because I feel like I had all these partially formed ideas when I was watching the movie that I was like, I think that's something. Oh, I think that's something there. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like digging into it a bit more and doing some more research. And one thing that kind of kept coming up is this idea of like a detachment from the reality. And I think that's like the role that like the MC plays and like why we're seeing all these musical numbers. They're not, I mean, yes, they are just performances for the audience, but they're obviously commentating on what's happening in the narrative as well. And it's just this like detachment from, you want to get involved, but you don't. Like Brian is aware that like something bad is going on, but no one else seems to be all that concerned. And it kind of taunts you. It like makes you feel a little guilty for having fun because there's this big problem going on. But like it's probably not that big of a deal, and like it's just this, I don't know, this push and pull between wanting to care and this indifference about it all. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's especially with like Sally as a character who's just living in her own little world. She's kind of got her own idea of her life, and so she's so tuned out to those kinds of things. Like I don't know if she ever like mentions or ever even seems to be aware or care that any of this is happening. And then when you compare that to Brian, who is the more grounded character and also the only one who cares that there are literal Nazis in the streets.
Yeah.
Brian's like, guys, this is a problem. And everyone's like, it'll solve itself. And he's like, no, guys, I really don't think it will. And I was like, yeah, agreed. Listen to Brian.
That's why this hit so hard this time. Because I don't know. Some of the scenes especially just hit extra hard for me, being like, I don't know, the social climate that we're in today, and literal Nazis are back, so that's fun.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing as everyone else, where we're just like, it'll kind of solve itself. It doesn't, like, someone else will handle it. I don't know what to do about this, so I'm just going to pretend that everything's fine. But it's also kind of interesting that you're talking about detachment, because that's why people go to the cabaret, right? Yeah. So there's the detachment of the audience and the detachment of the performers, and everyone's just trying to bury their head in the sand against this creeping threat.
And there's
except for poor Brian standing outside going, guys, like seriously, they're right there.
he still also kind of allows himself to be swept along and forgets that it's happening.
Absolutely. Like, he doesn't do that much. I mean, he does punch some Nazis at one point and then get his
That's
ass
true.
kicked by them. But, like, he tries.
Yeah. Did he punch a Nazi or did he just, like, kick his sign over?
I don't think we see it. I think we see that he starts, like, attacking their stuff, and then we assume there's, like, a physical fight, because the next time we see him, he has his ass kicked, so...
I just assumed that, like, they just kicked his ass. I believe that Brian wouldn't land one punch.
I feel like he would have tried, because he was just really angry that day anyway, but yeah, I don't think he would have.
He would have done one of those comedic swings where he turns in a complete circle. With
or maybe that's how he, like, hurt his hand. He, like, went to swing and punch and then, like, hit the wall or something.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, Brian, you idiot.
Well, I guess since we talked about Sally a little bit there, what did y'all think of Liza Minnelli?
She is incredibly annoying. Her whole thing is not my style of thing. Her, like, super scattery, like, manic pixie dream girl thing is, like, super intense. She never stops playing this character she's created for herself.
That's a really good way of putting it, I think.
Ooh, oh my god, did I say something smart on the podcast? Whoa. Don't expect that to happen every week, people. But it's true, like, she's putting on this act for everybody, mostly for herself. And because it's so fake, it's grating.
Yeah.
It's just very hard I found it hard to watch her. I didn't like watching her, but it reeked of, like, sadness and desperation and being pathetic. And I was just like, ooh, it's hard to watch someone be so bad.
That just reminds me of something I wanted to ask Austin, because I remember reading once somewhere in my many travels that people believe that Liza Minnelli was miscast because Sally's supposed to be a terrible singer and really untalented. And the whole point is, like, she's so delusional that she thinks she's going to make it when she really sucks. Whereas Liza is obviously, like, a talented singer and also a huge celebrity because her mom is Judy Garland. And so people are kind of like, that's in not Liza's the best defense, casting.
She also was a Tony winner and Oscar nominated by this time.
No, that's what I mean. I'm not saying she's just Judy Garland's daughter, but I'm saying she is, like, a huge famous celebrity who's very talented playing some, like, awfully untalented character.
That's
Jackie, question.
Sorry, I do have a question. So Sally's supposed to be a bad singer?
Yeah. That's what well, she's not supposed to be bad. She's supposed to be, like, fine.
Did not get that part of it. I'm like,
no, because that doesn't happen. Because it didn't happen in the movie. That's one of my issues. That was one of my issues with the movie. But yeah, Sally's supposed to be this mediocre club performer. She's good, but probably not going to make it. And she's just, like, delusional. And, like, that's supposed to kind of make that impact even more. It adds a different flair to it, where it's like, this Sally, Liza's Sally, like, I think she's incredible in it, but there's no question she's gonna do well. Like, she's incredibly, like, Sally the character is talented. It's not that desperate, and I think that's, Jackie, I think you hit on it. Like, the character of Sally is desperate. Like, she has this act that she's putting on the whole time, and she wants to shock Brian the whole time, and she wants to be this, like, shocking woman and lives for the fame, but attention and recognition, validation. Also, the thing about this Sally is that I never, like you said, she's gonna be fine. Whatever happens in her life, like, she can charm people, she can sleep her way into whatever she wants. She's like, I don't feel like she's gonna end badly. I'm like, she's gonna take care of herself and find a situation and be fine. So that's kind of a weird way to picture her ending, because the war is coming, but I'm like, she's a survivor. We don't really need to worry about Sally, but I don't think that's the way you're supposed to feel at the end. I think you're supposed to worry about what's going to happen to these sad people.
See, I actually did feel that way. Like, unlike you, Jackie, I wasn't like, oh, Sally's going to be fine. I was kind of like, you probably should have left with Brian. Like, you just fucked yourself over, like, again, and kind of leading to her, I guess, delusions, where she's like, oh, I'm gonna be famous, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and, like, obviously nothing has ever panned out for that. She's like, I'm just gonna be playing at this cabaret until my big break comes, but now we know, like, that's never gonna happen. Like, she's about to live through war, possibly not make it.
Do you think that she would become a Nazi sympathizer? I think she would align herself with whoever's in power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she could, because she's indifferent about it all.
Right? That's such a scary thought. She's exactly like one of those people who never thought they would be a war criminal and then just ends up that way.
Yeah, and I think, like, she is really indifferent, but we also see her in a few scenes at the cabaret where she's kind of, like, cozying up to rich and powerful people trying to make connections, and we now know that soon those rich and powerful people aren't going to be, like, businessmen and diplomats, they're going to be Nazi generals, and that's who she's going to be cozying up to, trying to get through the next few years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right, she's gonna destroy her own sense of self because she'll basically become a sex worker to a degree. Like, she's gonna start realizing that her survival is dependent on her body or her talent or whatever, her charm. And I think she's in for a real rude awakening, but I still think she will be standing on the other side of it.
It's funny that you brought that up, actually, Jen. I was gonna talk about that because it is a strange casting choice for the character, because I feel like they do both work. It's just two very different takes, kind of.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's something that I had read at some point, so I wanted to ask you if it was true, because I did think of it at one point during the movie where I'm like, I still get the sense that she's delusional and she's not going to become a famous singer or anything like that. Like, I think the movie still does a good job of telling you she's never going to make it, but you're right that it's really different where she's not going to make it because she's not talented, and you're sort of like, oh, she's completely out to lunch that she thinks she's going to make it, versus this version where I guess she is really talented, but because of all these other circumstances, she's still never going to make it. It's almost like a different type of tragedy.
Yeah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but did she talk about in the movie wanting to be an actress? I think she's talked about being an actress more than being a singer. So I wonder if that was a change that they made. It's like, well, maybe she can't be maybe she could be a singer, but she can't be an actress or something like that.
But then it also, like, maybe this is just getting too, like, deep into it, but I'm like, if she wants to be a famous actress, why did she move to Berlin to work in a cabaret? You know what I mean? I'm like, you could go back to America, go to LA, like, you'll have a better chance.
Yeah, she clearly can't speak German, so I don't think have a big career in the German film industry.
Yeah, I wonder how she ended up there.
She's just she's carried wherever the wind goes. This is why she's going to be fine with Nazis. She just goes where there's a bottle of champagne waiting for her at the other end. She doesn't really question it beyond that.
That's very true. I did kind of assume she just was traveling about and just taking jobs where she could and seeing where she landed, but I don't know. If she's trying to make it as a famous actress, I don't think Germany is your best spot. Again, she does not speak any German.
Yep.
She has not made it 300 days in Duolingo like Austin has.
Yeah, man.
I will say, though, she lucked into, like, a friggin' baller-ass boarding house.
Yes.
I am obsessed with the boarding house. I would kill to live in this boarding house with these old weirdos. I'd love it. I mean, my room would be a lot cleaner than Sally's because she's a disgusting pig, but I would love with those old wallpaper and big ornate doors and windows.
Yes.
Looked amazing.
And so many, like, fabrics. She's got so many, like, blankets, throws, curtains. Like, it's just, even though it's a, cheap boarding house, like, it just looks so, like, antique and kind of, like, luxurious in a way. But I guess that's, like, Sally as a person, even though she's poor and not going anywhere. She's like, I will have silks and I will have champagnes and you will not ask how I got it.
Yeah.
Right, and she'll do underhanded stuff for it.
Yeah.
Cutthroat, for sure. Like, I wouldn't trust Sally at all.
No.
She would cut a bitch.
I liked whenever she asked Brian, like, do I shock you? And he was like, no. And she was like, I don't. And she was so upset because I feel like that's, like, her character in a nutshell, right?
And I think it's also, like, she's trying to stand out, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like, sorry, I don't want to get into, like, weird stuff, but when you're, like, a teenager and you're trying to find yourself and you start doing, like, really, like, over-the-top things. Like, I knew a girl who wore cat ears in high school every day.
Oh, yeah,
so
did
her
I!
thing. Yeah, it was, like, her thing. And I'm like, that's kind of, like, what Sally is as a person, even though she's not a teenager anymore. She's just trying to be, like, I'm so weird and in your face, and this is my thing. Like, don't I stand out? Don't you all know who I am?
How old is Sally?
Did they say?
I'm wondering, did they?
I don't think they did, but I assume she was, like, early 20s.
Early 20s, I think.
Yeah, Sally is just, she just wants attention. It's like it almost seems like she doesn't have a deeper level. She's all about external validation and what she has to do to get it, but she has no reason to, like, believe she is any good.
Yeah.
She's just pretty psychologically damaged.
I think that I thought, because her two, I mean, she has a bunch of big numbers, but, like, the two more powerful ones are Maybe This Time, which is the one Stevie sings in Schitt's Creek. And
Stevie does it better. Controversial
well,
statement.
she does it differently. And I was going to say, because Yes, the way Stevie does it, I think is the way it has that impact on stage, but I don't think it has that same impact when Liza sings it this way and in the movie. Because Sally doesn't seem sad. She doesn't act like, I feel like that's her moment that was her moment to be vulnerable, and I don't think she ever really is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, it's hilarious to watch you, Austin, because I can tell you so many things you want to say, and you're like, which one do I say first? So that is great. Second of all,
I just hope any of them make sense. Any of these thoughts when they come out make sense. That would be good.
Well, I can see what you're saying now because, Liza Minnelli's version is hopeful. And, like, maybe it is going to work out this time. Where Stevie's is like, it's not going to work out this time. I know it.
Yeah, she's like saying the words, but in the back of her head, she knows it's not.
Yeah, it's not any different than it was before. But I think I just prefer Stevie's version maybe because, I guess, well, I don't relate to it more, but it's just more real, I guess, because I don't know anyone who's really hopeful, especially when fascism is creeping up. Like, do you really think things are going to work out? Are we all really buying into that? So I can see what this is Sally's perception because she doesn't care about anything else but herself and the attention she gets. Yeah. But I like Stevie's version because it's more realistic, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the movie it's played it interjects with scenes of her and Brian, right? So they're like having this affair, and so is this going to work out with Brian? Definitely not. But like, so I can see like that's what. But yeah, I think I thought it was done a bit with a little bit more vulnerability in the movie, and I was a little disappointed that it was not.
I have not seen Schitt's Creek, so
I also love how that's the framework. Like, okay, so it's Liza Minnelli and then like Stevie. Those are the only two performances of maybe this time.
Only two I've seen.
Genuinely, you guys are going back and forth, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. I will let you have it out.
Brian. Let's talk about Brian.
So, this is my embarrassing note.
Okay.
When Brian entered the screen, I was like, I recognize this man. What is it from? And I looked it up, and it's fucking Austin Powers.
Oh, okay. That's not what I thought.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls.
Don't know what Gilmore Girls is. Don't watch that either. But he was Basil in the Austin Powers movies.
Oh my god.
Basil Exposition.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because I was like, what do I know him from? And I remember I did this last time when I watched Cabaret, so I had to look him up again, and I was like, that's it.
Oh, well, I feel like I should have included this piece of trivia then. I might have to fact check it, but it was something about how, I think at some point in this movie, Sally refers to herself as an international woman of mystery.
Yes, she does.
Amazing. Full circle, people.
Yep.
Time is a flat circle. In my notes, I keep calling him Basil or Asher Fleming but he's such a different person so many moons ago. He's so young looking and incredibly annoying. Again, I did not enjoy Brian basically at all.
I liked Brian for the most part. I feel like the parts that I had issues with him was when he and Sally were kind of half together and then she was kind of half into that rich guy. I just didn't like how they played that, where they showed him being really like jealous the whole time, and then their end fight reveal where he says he's also having the affair with the rich guy. I was like, I don't really know why they played it like that. I just felt that was very strange.
Yeah.
Please tell me when he says that he's having an affair with the rich guy, because I missed that.
It's when he and Sally are fighting and they're talking, what's the guy's name, Max or something?
Maximilian, yeah.
Maximilian, and he's like, oh, screw Maximilian, and then Sally goes, I already have.
Yeah, she's
and
like,
then he
I
goes,
do.
So do I.
Oh,
and then she gets really like,
and then she's like, you two bastards, and he's like, don't you mean 3 bastards?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of sad. Why couldn't they all just get together and be a little group and triangle?
But that's why I was like, I don't like how any of that was played. I just felt like it didn't make sense. It felt like they were withholding for that reveal, I guess, and I just didn't like it.
I guess. I didn't read it as jealousy. I kind of just... But that's interesting. I'm not saying it wasn't. It probably was. I just was kind of like, he's just kind of going along with the flow.
Can you also explain something else to me?
Yes.
When Maximilian and Brian like part ways, like they're in a car together and he drops Brian off at the house, they have like a really weird moment and they make some weird eye contact and they both look like angry or upset. Are we supposed to understand what happened, or is it just like something happened off screen and now we just have to accept that they're like splitting ways quickly?
Yeah, Maximilian confused me a little bit, honestly.
Yeah, because I think plot-wise, Maximilian's supposed to go do some business thing, and they were all going to go to Africa, but then he sent them a letter being like, we're not going to Africa, I have to go do other stuff because there are Nazis here. Oh, wait, no! I remember now. Maximilian's note says he has to go to Argentina because of the Nazis, and I was, like, dying.
I mean, that's a great place to go until all the Nazis arrive in a couple years. Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're a little ahead of the game.
Yeah, I guess Maximilian didn't have a purpose other than to create conflict between Sally and Brian.
It's funny. I really didn't see it even as conflict. I mean, logically it is, I suppose. I think I just thought that Brian and Sally, like, were together, but not really together. Like, I think they both knew that this wasn't, like, at that point anyway, like a real thing, and they have this, like, little flirty encounter with Maximilian for both of them, and just kind of go with the flow. I don't know. It definitely was. I think I read that wrong, to be honest, but oh well.
I was gonna say, I think you saw a more optimistic version of it almost, where you're just like, they're all happy and the three of them are sleeping together and no one's upset.
Not necessarily happy, just indifferent again.
Well, I thought they were, like, super in love because of basically her big number about maybe this time it's going to work out. Somebody loves me finally. It's all, rainbows and cupcakes. Love, love. It's so great. And it's like them in bed and being flirty and cute. Like, I thought we were supposed to believe that they both thought this was the big relationship.
Yeah, and, like, I think even before Maximilian's introduced, there's, like, a scene where she's talking to some guy at the club, and then Brian uses that cross the club phone thing, which I love, and is like, oh, tell him, like, your boyfriend is, like, a gangster or whatever, so that she can, like, get away from him and, like, come back to Brian. So I was like, he's clearly, like, a jealous kind of type with Sally.
I guess so.
Even though he knew going into this that she is kind of a sex worker.
She's free with her favors.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think part of her job is to flirt and kind of hostess.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, she kind of is. I don't think she necessarily is, but it's kind of like you flirt and maybe do things with these gentlemen to keep them customers and keep them happy.
Yeah, we don't know how far she goes. Like, I feel like Sally is very fluid with that line, but I'm sure she would go to dinners and accept jewelry and things like that, and who knows what happens after that. But she doesn't seem like she's opposed to it.
Yeah.
For her job, for advancement. Like, her whole thing is, like, she will do what it has to be done. And it's, like, she doesn't see anything negative about doing it if it gets her the end result.
Yeah, I think she wants, like, nice things and, like, this decadence that she thinks that she can get from this life.
P.S. Are there phones at every table?
I think so.
This is, like, an old thing from clubs. I've heard about it before. So it's, like, you would be able to call the bar or whatever, or you can call other tables and be like, you're cute, want to come over to my table, and stuff like that.
I love this idea. We got to bring this back. Also, how do you know the number of the table?
It would be, like, on it. So, like, say you're table 9, people would put in 09, and that would call your table.
You guys, we got to open a bar. This is such a good idea. Where were we?
We were talking about Brian.
Oh, Brian.
I guess one topic is the way sexuality is handled in this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's 72. And, like, Brian's definitely at least bisexual. He says he's gay. Or he implies that he's gay. He doesn't say the words. But I thought that it was interesting. Fosse said that he really wanted to avoid the stereotypes that were prevalent at the time, which is one of the reasons why he cast Michael York, because of the way he looked and the way he presented himself. Like, he wasn't the stereotypical gay man that you would have seen in, like, movies and TV or whatever. There's preconceived notion. He wanted to challenge people's preconceived notions of what a gay man would look like. So I thought that was really interesting. But I also know that Christopher Isherwood, the author of the stories that it's based on, wasn't entirely happy. He felt like with Brian, his homosexuality was like an amusing but harmless weakness, I believe was his quote.
I wonder if it was easier, not easy by any stretch, but easier to say you were gay than bi. Like, people seem to be more accepting of the very clearly defined ends of the spectrum rather than anywhere in the middle. So maybe he was a bisexual man, but presented himself to the world as a gay man just for quote unquote simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
The only part that I would say really did bothered me was at first Brian kind of reveals that he's gay to Sally, or possibly gay, by saying, like, I've tried to have sex with women and it's never really worked. And then later, once he's had sex with Sally, he's like, oh, they were just the wrong women. And so it's kind of weird to hear you say that the whole reason they wanted him to be like this was to break the stereotypes, whereas I feel like that's like a really big thing that people used to believe was like, you're not gay, you just haven't met the right person. And so then that's kind of what they do with Brian, where it's like, oh, he's not really gay, he just hadn't met the right girl. And I just don't love that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was my initial thought when I watched it too, where I was like, ooh, this seems like a dated concept.
Yeah. Because if he was bi, he would be attracted, presumably, to more than one woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be, like, just Sally.
I think maybe that's why I was like, well, they're clearly not, like, they're not destined to be together. Like, we know off the top that he's not straight, or he's at least questioning his sexuality, I suppose.
I just did not get that for the longest time. I didn't get it until he, like, had his weird dancey dance with Maximilian and Sally. Like, I thought he was just, like, a really shy, repressed British guy who didn't, like, understand what sex could be if it wasn't just, like, missionary vanilla garbage.
Okay, so you took it more as, like, he had a lackluster sex life and was just choosing to be with no one until Sally, like, came along.
Pretty much, and I fully was just like, yeah, I get that he's not into Sally's whole thing. I didn't see it as, like, I'm rejecting a woman offering to have sex with me. It's more like, you are a lot. I am very, very straight-laced. Like, I'm not sure I can handle this. Like, please leave. But I feel like the idea that he's a gay man obviously makes a lot of sense, but it could have used more spelling out for the dunces in the crowd, I suppose.
I feel like it's also like maybe an appropriate representation of the time as well. Like, not the best time to be out.
I agree, because, like, guess who else the Nazis are coming for?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good job getting out of town, Brian.
Behind closed doors, they could have made it a little more obvious. But
yeah, and that's, again, when I was saying my frustration with the kind of relationship with Maximilian when he gets in, whereas I feel like they show Brian just kind of seeming jealous that Max is spending all this time with Sally, whereas I'm like, if the fact is that the three of them are sleeping together, like, let's maybe play that up a little more.
Okay, well, so here's I feel like it plays it up a lot. Because then it's immediately, I think it's right after that, we have the number 2 ladies, which, so this is jumping ahead to, like, how the music comments on the narrative, but, like, everything we see on the show is, like, satirizing or commentating on something that we just saw happen in the narrative part of the movie, like the Sally Brian story. And so there's, like, a whole song about 2 ladies, like, the MC, or Master of Ceremonies, is, like, doing a number with 2 women, and they, like, live together, and they have, you know, a little menage a trois situation, and it's this whole, like, satirical bit on that, which is commenting on the Sally Brian Maximilian.
Did not put that together.
Same. And Austin, this is the part where you continue to hate me, but, like, I tend to not pay attention to the musical numbers.
They're not even, like, musical. They're just like, there's some numbers. It's great.
But that's why I feel like I don't have to pay attention to them. Is because it's not like the character bursts into song explaining what's happening in the movie. It's now there's just a cabaret scene where there's a performance. So I'm just like, oh,
except
this
for
has nothing to do with the plot. I can leave. I can go make myself a snack.
It's funny that you use those exact words, because it's like, and then the MC comes on and sings about what's happening in the movie.
See, but I was just like, I didn't catch that that's what was happening. I was like, oh, it's just another song that has no purpose. I'm out.
All right, well,
yeah, and I even watched them all and still didn't get it.
So then the next part of my conversation that I wanted to talk about will be very one-sided. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just like, clearly you understand this in a way that Jackie and I do not.
Please don't lump me in with you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jackie. Do you have a full, deep understanding of the movie Cabaret? Let's hear it.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
What did you think of the symbolism in the songs?
'Twas rife.
I wish I could watch this again blind, like, not... I mean, I don't know the show extremely well. Like, I don't know the music that well. All the songs that are not in the movie but are in the show, I don't really know very well at all. So, like, it's not a show that I'm extremely familiar with, but I do wish I could go back and see the movie again with like knowing nothing and see if I would make those connections. Because like it seems very obvious to me now, but I don't know if I would have made that initial connection. But...
Okay, so what are the songs they sing in the cabaret, and then what are they representing in the movie? Like, explain this to me like I'm dumb, because apparently I am.
Okay. Well, the big ones, I guess. Well, first of all, Willkommen, the first number, kind of sets... It's not really comment, but it's setting the stage. It's introducing our characters, which is very, like, classic Broadway, but, like, in a setting that's more particular to this movie. So I talked about Two Ladies. I mean, what about If You Could See Her Through My Eyes? The one with the gorilla.
Oof, that was rough.
Sorry, the what?
Did you not see
gorilla?
This? Was there a gorilla on screen?
Did you not watch this movie?
I swear I did.
For like 10 minutes. For an interminable amount of time, okay, there's a gorilla.
And then it ends with the line, if you could see her through my eyes, she wouldn't look Jewish at all.
Did not catch any of this.
It's like the most impactful song of the musical.
Whoa. That I did not think. I thought it was a silly, stupid, awful number, but I don't know how you didn't see it at all. Because it was literally 5 minutes long. Like, where were you?
I genuinely was probably like, oh, it's a cabaret scene where they're just singing. I'll go make a cup of tea. And then I missed it.
Wow.
Do I need to watch this again?
So he sings...
Maybe.
Probably. He sings the song. So the MC.
Wait, so it's the MC singing? Okay.
The MC, yeah, Joel Grey. He's like doing this number, and it's supposed to be this like funny little cute ditty. He's dancing with a gorilla in like a ballet costume, and they're
okay, back to my question: is this a gorilla?
It
or
is a human in a gorilla suit.
Okay, thank you.
And then, okay, I can't believe I have to explain this to you.
Literally.
I can't believe I missed this.
But anyway, it's this whole song about how like, oh, no one understands our love, and I love you so much, but like people don't want us to be together because you're a gorilla. It doesn't say that, but like that's what's, you know, if you read it at face value, it's the like, it's this just a silly song about things that don't really mean anything. And then it ends with the line, if you could see her through my eyes, she wouldn't look Jewish at all. And it's like a commentary on, I mean, the rise of fascism, of course, obviously.
Yeah,
and like
Nazis,
you know, a little thing called Nazis. In the show, it comes after a scene where I mentioned Fraulein Schneider has a relationship with this man named Herr Schultz, who's Jewish, and a brick is thrown through his store, and she's all worried that it was like the Nazis, and he like goes outside and he's like, oh no, it was just school children, it was just a prank, like it's fine, like trying to convince both of them, but they both know it's not true. And so that's when that happens. And so it's kind of that like, also though you can't judge a book by its cover. I can't believe you didn't see that song.
I'm
baffled.
sorry.
How did you miss that? It was so jarring because it's a person in a gorilla suit.
I truly don't know. I'm gonna look it up on YouTube.
I also didn't get it, but that gorilla's on screen more than like Fritz. I don't know how you missed it.
Yeah. Okay, so now Jen has seen that scene, so that's
the gorilla.
Let's take quick breaks so that I could see that there was a gorilla in this movie. You guys were not playing an elaborate prank on me.
No. And then, I mean, I guess Tomorrow Belongs to Me is probably the other. That's different because it's not actually in the Kit Kat Club. But
yeah, I did see the Nazi youth song.
Good.
Yeah, I have a question. Is that a real, like, Nazi song?
No, and the problem is that it's mistaken for one a lot, but it's not. Like, it was written by Kander and Ebb for this.
Okay, because I was like, everyone seems to know the words. Is this like a rallying cry for Nazis?
No, and
it didn't need to be because it was so friggin' creepy.
Right? And it's like, that scene is real powerful, at least I thought it was, because it's like the song starts very just like German naturalism, and it's very like just about the beauty of the country, and then all of a sudden like the camera starts panning down, you see the swastika on his arm.
We saw that coming though, right? Like,
oh
yeah, but like
the haircut
theoretically, right? Like,
yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, the second he started singing, I think we all had that creeping dread where you're like, oh,
yeah,
like bad news.
Yeah, and then everyone
it becomes like everyone singing along and like people standing up, and
don't they all look really like skeptical and half offended at first? And then like one guy stands up and then another, and then they all do. Like it's so
It's
clearly
like, oh, it's
about
okay.
how the dominoes fall in real life. It's creepy as hell.
And then there's that one man who's like, oh no, and like,
Yeah.
you know, refuses to sing or stand up.
And it's an old guy because you know he's seen some shit, right?
Yeah.
Like he knows how the steps go.
And then Brian and Maximilian, again, just leave. They're just like, oh, not for us, bye. This will sort itself out.
Yeah. They're not like standing up at that point being like, shut it, Nazi.
Well, that's when Brian is like,
about.
are you sure this is going to sort itself out? That's when he calls Maximilian
Yeah.
on that shit. And he's like, yeah, it'll be fine.
The difference is Maximilian is rich. He has that cushion where he doesn't really, like, let's be real and lay the cards out. You don't expect rich people to try and upset the status quo or go against the power because it's where their money is. So you don't expect Max to ever do anything or stand for anything because he can just fly to Argentina. But the people on the ground are the ones who can see the reality of what's coming, and they're the ones, like you said, they're coming for gay people, they're coming for Jewish people, they're coming from everybody who's not a white Aryan youth. So you would expect them to be more aware of the potential for catastrophe in their life, and they're just, again, like to repeat what you said, willfully delusional. And it's frustrating.
I just had a thought that never occurred to me until now, because like at the end of the movie, Brian kind of like leaves and goes back to, I guess, he's going to university in Cambridge, Oxford, somewhere.
Something like that, yeah.
But I'm like, he leaves Berlin to go back to England, and now he's probably going to be going back to Germany in a couple years as a soldier.
Oh, shit.
So, like,
so yeah, he's getting drafted. Sorry. Enjoy.
Yeah, so he's seeing the slow creep, like, firsthand of what Nazism is, and, you know, he's going to be part of what stops it eventually, but not for a while.
He's awake to a degree, but he's going to be very awoken to the reality, and this is like a vacation for him, this whole Berlin experience of trying to pretend like he can be this bohemian and consequences aren't a thing he has to worry about. But he's going back to the real world when he goes to England, and it's going to be rough for him.
It's going to be weird, too, when he goes back and people are going to, you know, in the newspapers be like, oh, I see this, like, elections coming up in Germany or whatever. And he's going to be like, yeah, guys, by the way, shit's not great over there.
Right? He's like, I also
like,
wonder if, like,
maybe we should care a little.
He might actually get in trouble or ostracized or fired for the fact that he speaks German and could be considered like a German sympathizer.
Oh, true.
Lived in Germany, he might get like arrested.
Oh my god,
yeah, they
Brian.
might consider him a spy.
Maybe he is a spy.
So maybe it is better that in the stage show he's American.
If this movie turned into like a World War II spy movie, Austin, I would be so on board.
Me too, for sure. I actually really thought that's what it was going to be, and I was hoping for it. Sorry, not to say that this movie didn't have stuff going for it, but like, I think you know where my tastes lie. I want to talk a little bit now. We're going to move to separate characters, it's okay. But the whole Fritz and heiress woman.
Natalia, I think her name is?
Yes.
Yes. So they have a really weird side plot that doesn't really get explored, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it starts with him raping her.
I don't... yeah, it's complicated. So, like, he sees her and is like, I like her, she's rich, and I want to be rich. Mm-hmm. And then they have this, like, half-dating relationship kind of thing where they're just like, we're two people who have met, and it is the 1930s, so now we hang out, and I'm gonna ask you to marry me? Question mark. But then Sally, I think, tells him to just pounce on her, and then he does.
And then she cries for a long time and talks to Sally about it and says,
yeah,
I didn't want it, but then he, like, forced me to want it?
Yeah, like, I wish it could have been a little better, because the way she describes it makes it sound very non-consensual, even though she ends up saying, like, now I can't stop thinking about him and I want him so much, or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, you did just say that he jumped on you and you cried and said no.
Yeah, because I think, like, it's portraying that their relationship started with him just wanting her for her money. He's like, you know, she's an heiress for a department store, I think, and he just wants to get the money, and then he, like, actually falls in love with her, and she
questionable.
But I
she's
think
pretty, yeah.
But the movie is
pretty.
Saying he does fall in love with her. Like, it becomes a genuine relationship, and I guess she feels the same way. But yeah, it's like, I don't know if we set that up enough at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, did they have a conversation with one another that they both seemed to enjoy?
No, not a conversation or an interaction. Like they never look at each other and smile.
Yeah, they talk about each other to other people.
Yeah, and they like hung out in a group once, but I don't even think the two of them really had like a one-on-one time.
It's like you said though, like the 1930 times, you don't date. You're like, oh, you're an advantageous match for my family, or oh, I like your butt and I want to touch it and I can't until we're married. So like those are your options. But I didn't get that there was sexual chemistry with them. I didn't get that there was like companionship. Like what's she getting out of it other than the fact that she was forced to have sex with him and now feels like she has to marry him?
Literally nothing. She's like, even when she's like, oh, like when she's talking to Sally and she's like, he wants to marry me and I love him, but like my father won't approve. And it's like, well, yeah, because he's poor, a scam artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he brings nothing to the table.
Yeah, he don't even have a good personality. Like, he wasn't even like charming and funny or something. So you could be like, oh, that scampy little rapist. Like, who cares?
You're right. Like, I guess Natalia is the most non-explored, like one-dimensional character. Like she's nothing.
Which is strange because when she first is introduced at the translation session with Brian, she's very like her own person. She's like, this is how I want this to go and this is how it will go. But then later on, she's just like, I don't know, I guess I'm marrying this guy now because he's Jewish.
She's also really the only person in the movie that is affected by the rise of fascism. Like the Nazis kill her dog.
Yeah, and she said a couple things too, like, oh, she's aware, she's like, I might not be stable here, who knows what's going to happen with my family's money, and I'm Jewish and all that stuff. Like she's very aware, which I mean is the reality of how people who were Jewish felt. They could see it coming.
So I just wish there was a little bit more. No, I just wish there was a little bit more care, I guess, put into her, because you're right, she starts off as a very strong character, and then, or at least like with a strong sense of self, and then we don't really see much of that develop, or we see it through Fritz and through conversations with other people, but we don't actually see it. And it's a weird storyline that was added. It was like I said, the middle-aged romance was taken away from the stage show, and we were at like they added Natalia and Fritz, and I feel like I prefer the stage show subplot rather than them, because I don't know, it just seems they set us up to have something to latch onto, but then didn't actually follow through on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It would kind of be easier too if it was the landlord's experience, because they're so in a tightly knit area. Yeah. Like it wouldn't be so weird as to always find reasons to bring Natalia and Fritz over into the boarding house. Yeah. It would seem more natural.
Yeah, and it does make sense to have, like you were saying, a Jewish character who is actually affected, whereas everyone else is like, oh, tra-la-la, love is the most important thing. How's your relationship going? And this person's like, who cares? Like, shit's getting real, guys.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of it, but you're right that I do not think Natalia and Fritz were developed as a couple. So even if they had just kept Natalia and had, Fritz being like, I want to marry you, and her being like, I'm leaving the country. Nazis are here.
I have a question, Austin. In the stage show, you said that the landlord, she breaks up with him, right? So she does not end up with him?
Right.
That would have been a good way to end the Natalia and Fritz. Like, I don't like that they ended up getting married. It would have been nicer if you actually explored the fact that, yeah, okay, relationships are super important, but guess what? Nazis also affect that. Nazis are bad.
Yeah.
Like, you showed consequences, and, like, these people are not going to have a happy life because there's real societal issues that will happen if they get married.
Yeah. Or even if she had been like, okay, you want to get married, that's nice, I have to flee the country or something, and then he maybe had to decide whether or not he was going to go with her or stay in Berlin.
Right? Him being Jewish just seemed like a real easy...
Yeah, it seemed like a cop-out where it's like, oh, he's Jewish, they can get married because they're both in for the same horrible fates?
Hey. Actually, I really didn't think about what was going to happen to them after this movie ended.
Nothing good.
Nothing good happens to anyone in this movie.
Yeah, we just came up to the fact that Brian's gonna go die in World War II.
Right.
Sally's gonna be a sex worker for, like, Nazi guards.
You know who's gonna be just fine?
The Jewish characters are dead. Yeah, the MC is not gonna be fine, Austin.
I also hate that MC.
You're supposed to.
Oh, good. Oh, I thought you were gonna be so mad at me for saying that.
I mean, I love Joel Grey, and I love his performance, but he's a... like
awful, creepy,
an awful character.
Yeah, can we talk about the MC?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you explain him?
So he's kind of like our so Paul Scheer on Unspooled referred to him as like the audience conduit, which I'm like, that makes sense. He's like our narrator. He breaks the fourth wall. He's talking to us, and we are audience members in the Kit Kat Club kind of thing on the stage. And they did do this in the movie. But when you walk in to the audience, there's mirrors set up behind the stage so that you're looking at yourself as an audience member. So like showing that you are the audience. And so they do that again. They do this in the movie. There's like distorted mirrors at the beginning, at the end, which kind of like right away, it's kind of like, okay, this like weird distorted reality. Maybe don't take things at face value. So like Joel Grey is talking to us as the MC, and he's like pure camp. And then his act is sort of the conceptual base, the kind of where the show is rooted, I guess. He doesn't really have any redeeming quality. We don't really know much about him. Like, we don't know who he is. We don't know anything about his life outside of the Kit Kat Club. We don't know his relationships with the dancers. But I think he's supposed to make us uncomfortable. Like, it's like this bit of like dangling the carrot of like, hey, like, you want this, and then pulling it away at the last second, or like, it's a fun time, we're just here to have fun. Like in Bill Coleman, it's like, you know, outside, like, leave your troubles outside, and here it's beautiful, everyone's beautiful, even the orchestra is beautiful, like, life is, you know, life is good in here. But then he kind of rips it away, like with that she wouldn't look Jewish at all comment, or like all the little things that have a little jab at the end that you're not supposed to like him. He's supposed to make you uncomfortable. He's supposed to make you kind of think twice, I guess, about what you're seeing.
I can see what you're saying. He didn't. I just didn't like him. That's probably more my failing. Like, I didn't understand why he was so creepy and starey and like overly made up to the point of like disgusting. You know, like he I just couldn't figure out why we're supposed to hate him, and what the point of hating him is. Like, what is the point of him at all?
He's
right now.
Yeah.
That's same, and as we have established, I did not notice that the cabaret scenes of Cabaret meant anything to the movie because I'm a very smart person.
You guys, you're killing me so hard.
I genuinely didn't get the purpose. I got his purpose was to perform, but I didn't understand that he was supposed to be kind of like, you know, twisting the reality, like you said, and putting those little jabs in there. I was just like, he's this guy who works the cabaret who stares at Liza Minnelli a lot, and I don't understand, like, what he's thinking, what he knows, like, what he doesn't know, like, what's he up to?
You guys have
so
broken me.
Sorry, Austin.
She's looked so defeated, you guys. Oh, no.
I'm aware how stupid it sounds as I was just saying it. Like, I genuinely did not think the cabaret scenes meant anything.
Can I tell you what this movie made me think of? A little gem called Burlesque.
Oh, God.
Yes!
That basically ripped off all the weird numbers and the MC thing and the, like, over-sexual, like, performances by the MC and the band. Like, it was such a direct rip-off of a lot of this movie. And I love Burlesque, you guys.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it has Cher. You can't go wrong.
Right?
You can go wrong.
Austin, is Burlesque on your list?
God, no.
Guess what we're watching next time?
This is Jackie's next pick.
Let's compare and contrast, shall we?
Oh my God. I can't believe that. That's like literally the point of Cabaret. Which, okay, but see, this is what I mean, is that I wonder, if you guys had seen it on the stage, if that would have been more clear. Because like a lot of the articles and like stuff I was reading about it is like talking about how like Fosse wanted to, like I said before, get rid of all the book numbers. Like anything that wasn't a cabaret song wasn't gonna be in the movie, fine. And so it like theoretically makes that like startling contrast clearer in the movie than it did on the stage. But apparently not.
I just want to remind you that this is the second time I've seen the movie.
Jesus Christ.
I need to remind you that I need subtitles to understand anything, so I don't think the stage show would work out too well for me. I'm like, what? Austin, what did he say? You'd be like, stop talking to me.
So everything you're saying makes sense. Like,
okay.
I get it when you're talking about it. I'm like, yes, of course.
The gorilla.
That is what is going on in this movie. But, like, both times while watching it, honestly, it makes sense, like, for me now, that I always felt like I was missing something. Like, even when I was writing my synopsis, and I was like, I feel like that can't be the whole movie. And then I'm watching it, and I'm like, this movie's kind of boring. Like, I don't really fully get it. Like, it's kind of like, why do people like this? There's not a whole lot going on. But it is because there's like a third of the movie that I just wasn't clicking with. Like, I just didn't understand that was a part of the movie. And so I was like, the musical numbers don't make any sense. They don't serve any purpose. They're boring. Just focus on the Nazis.
They're not really overtly, I mean, I guess if you see the stage show first, but to me, they didn't connect directly.
Yeah.
Like, two ladies, now I can see it's reflected in the other relationship, but I'm like, the other relationship isn't two ladies. It's two dudes.
That, they made it the more, like, heterosexual, appropriate, respectable version of it.
But to me, it just doesn't connect as overtly.
Yeah, or like, even now that we're talking about it, they sing that song about like money, and then later rich Maximilian shows up and they kind of flash back to it for a second where she's like, money, and I was like, okay, whatever.
There's also a line in there that I literally just caught yesterday for the first time ever, because it's so fast that I never catch any of the lyrics, but one of them is something about like, if you can pay for a gay escapade, blah blah blah, whatever the words are. I was like, yep. Ooh,
oh my.
One comments here.
Also, the MC's lipstick is really bad. So I have those weird, giant, pointy lips.
Here's what I'm gonna say. If you hated him so much, I think that's a good thing.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad that my hate this time wasn't misplaced, because usually you don't like what I choose to hate. But this time it's a win.
No, he's like a despicable character. And I know Joel Grey had a really hard time finding that character, because so he played the MC on Broadway as well. And he was really struggling to like figure out how to make that work, and he thought about a comedian that he saw years ago that was just, he was like disgusted by, like he couldn't believe like this comedian would just get up on stage and literally do anything to get a laugh, right? Like he would do, like it was gross, it was like lowbrow, but it was just like gross. So that's kind of how he described it, as just being like a really gross experience, and this guy was just like shameless, and he kind of decided to channel that comedian in the MC. And so like he came into rehearsal, and it was like a few days before they were like starting, I don't know if it was out of town or before, like not too long before the production actually started, and he had been worried about finding the character, and then he just kind of channeled this comedian and just started like using his cane to like look up the dancers' skirts and like just sit, like just being gross, and Halprin's was like, yep, there it is, found it. And it's like, great. And he was like ashamed of himself, like he did this thing, like he kind of like, he told Hal Prince like, I'm gonna try this thing, and then he's like, cool, and so he did it, and then he like left the stage and he's like, I'm getting fired. Like that was like, that can't, like I feel disgusting, like this is, I've just fucked myself over, like can't do this. And then he was like, yes, exactly, perfect. So
actors are so weird. I must go find the character.
But like, how do you relate to a character like that? Like he doesn't have, like he's not fleshed out. We don't know anything about him. We don't, you know.
I'm not an actor for that reason. I don't understand. And I'm sure he did a good job. He's probably not a horrible person in real life, but
he's a delightful man. You know Joel Grey, right? You know Joel Grey.
Why would we know Joel Grey?
Yeah, has he been in another thing?
This is where I leave. Goodbye, everybody.
Should he Google it? Okay,
I'm like Googling him right now.
Will I recognize his face without the makeup? That's the question.
Okay. Actors, Cabaret.
Oh my god, he was on Buffy. Nice. I recognize him for sure in a couple things.
Oh,
He was cute when he was younger, for sure. Oh, he's been in a lot of things now that I'm seeing this.
All right, well, now that you've had your Joel Grey education.
Anywho, okay, yeah, that's a guy. Totally.
Austin, like, are you okay? Do we need to do a mid-episode friendometer?
Don't do it. I don't think it's good for us to know how much she's hating us right now.
Definitely not for me. Like, I think you're doing better than I am, Jackie. I'm like, what happened in this movie?
What is this? Oh my god.
So rare for me to do better than Jen.
These musical numbers, the backbone of this show. Not important. But I mean, that's an interesting, like,
I knew we were going to have issues, not to this extent, of course, because I came in here being like, Austin's going to hate me because I'm going to say, once again, it didn't need to be a musical. It could have just been a movie about her life without the performances. But I did not realize, anyway.
I'm just going to sit back and just, like, watch this unfold.
Just remember that I'm always really nice to you guys, even when you hate my movies. So,
Well,
Oh my goodness. I guess we should talk about like what happens in Sally, Max, Brian's weirdo relationship. I still don't get. So Max just wanted people to play with because he's real spending money on Sally, and I'm like, what is he hoping to get out of this investment?
So I think Maximilian says that he has like a wife, but they sort of have an arrangement where they both kind of just live their own lives and have their fun. So he's just trying to fuck, basically. He's like, oh, this will be my little affair fling while I'm in Berlin, you know? While I'm here on this business trip right now, I'll sleep with these two people. And then on my next business trip, there'll be another person in another city kind of deal.
Right, so he is just fully like, does he show up on the scene and you know he's bisexual? Because I also missed that.
I don't think so. I think when he shows up, they're sort of just playing. And again, this is Austin kind of viewed their relationship differently. So I sort of saw that he was just interested in Sally and Sally was interested in him. And then Brian was kind of like the odd one out. And there was a couple times where like Brian seemed kind of jealous and they're all at the house together. And there's a few moments where Maximilian's kind of like talking to Brian, and it could either be sort of like a macho, like, man kind of facing off, or it could be flirtatious, you know what I mean? It depends on how you read it. So like when he's trying to give Brian the sweater and being like, oh, wear this, it's your color, it's like, is that him hitting on him, or is that him kind of trying to emasculate him almost, being like, I'm fucking your girl, you're gonna wear my clothes in my house because I'm the rich guy? So it's like, it depends on how you want to view it.
Yeah, in the cigarette case, I totally saw it as like alpha male posturing. I didn't think it was seduction.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. I read it completely different. That's so funny.
We did break Austin. She can't even talk. She's like, I don't want to talk to you guys anymore.
Do you just need to monologue for the rest of the episode and Jackie and I will mute ourselves?
Yes, educate us.
No, I don't have much to say. I don't really like that storyline, honestly.
Yeah.
I was confused.
Like the love triangle part of it, where it's just like who is into who at what point, kind of.
Because Jen, it's funny that you're like, oh, nothing happens in this movie. This could be this could be a whole other thing. And I did make that note. I was like, I kind of forgot that nothing really happens in this movie. That was a note that I made. So I feel like it was just kind of, I mean, I guess we've done a couple of movies like that where it's just kind of, and now it's this, and now it's this, and now we're here. Like, it's not, but I mean, that's also, like I talked earlier about the concept musical, like that is kind of an aspect of it where it's not super plot driven, but yeah, I don't know, maybe.
I kind of have a different opinion on that one, because I thought the most interesting part was when she got pregnant and then she was trying to convince herself that she wanted this like settled little life in England with Brian, and Brian's having to decide how he feels about the fact that he might be raising another man's baby, and she's convincing herself of the whole, like, again, deluding herself into thinking she's something else. And that was really interesting to me, and the way it slowly falls apart and then abruptly ends. Like, she makes the choice to abort the baby without telling anybody or really thinking it through, it seems. And also, again, that's another thing I really missed. I thought she was out all night because she was sleeping with somebody else. I didn't get that she rolled in after having an abortion, and I still, like, I didn't figure it out until the very end of the movie. I'm like, when does she say I had an abortion?
She doesn't. He notices that the coat is missing. Because I think they make some comment about, like, how, oh, this coat's worth so much money and how she had to sell the coat for an abortion. And then he notices that she doesn't have the coat anymore.
I did not get that. Yeah, she definitely mentions she's going to have to sell the coat to pay for the abortion. Yeah.
Jen, why are you looking like
that? No, I was going to say I also did not catch the coat thing, but then I'm like, I'm just not going to talk anymore. Apparently I didn't catch the whole fucking movie. Was Liza Minnelli in this? Like, did I miss that too? Like,
she was in the gorilla costume.
Knew it.
So, just for my own edification, Austin, you knew she had the abortion right away when she, like, rolled in without the coat, kind of thing?
I mean, I knew she had the abortion because I know the plot of the movie, but...
And Jen, when did you understand that the abortion had happened?
When they were having that fight, after she came in, I guess, after being out all night, and then
that's pretty much when you find out. I think you find out kind of at the same time Brian does.
Like... But I didn't get it.
Oh.
I thought that she was mad because she was out, like, partying and screwing around all night. And I thought that she was like, yeah, I'm realizing that a quiet life in the country is not my jam. Like, this is who I am. And I thought that was going to lead to her either being a single mom or getting an abortion. But I didn't know that it was a done deal. And I feel like Brian should have been way more upset. I mean, he's probably relieved, to be honest, because he knows she's not that type of person and it would only be trouble.
It's again,
But
indifference.
the fact that she would do something without telling him, or
Yeah.
just feel like he underreacted for that kind of a situation. He was just like, ugh, fine.
Yeah,
So
like
British.
Definitely for the best. Like, I don't think, Sally was prepared to be a parent. I don't think maybe Brian was prepared to be a parent with Sally. I think it would have been a disaster. So I still think she should have fucking gone back to England with him and skipped the war, but that's a whole other thing. I mean, not skipped the war, but just not been in Germany for the war.
Yeah, maybe not be at ground zero, for sure.
Like,
But
England was still very much being bombed, so she wouldn't be escaping that.
it's the whole point, though. She's not acknowledging the risk of the rise of Nazism, and she's not seeing far enough or considering far enough in her own future to think about what might be coming. So she's not going to try and escape it because she's oblivious.
Do you think some of it also has to do with this like idea that you can't change what's happening around you? So like I've talked a lot about this like indifference that seems to permeate every aspect of the movie that I didn't even really realize until we've talked about it. But like it just kind of seems like there's this, we can have this like fantasy world in the cabaret, and like her final song, like "Life is a Cabaret, Old Chum," but like what's the point? Like we can't do anything about it, and that's kind of, I don't know. It's a very cynical movie, is what I'm realizing.
I was just gonna say that's very bleak that you're saying the moral of the movie is like you can't stop the Nazis. It's gonna happen.
I don't mean
fascism
that
is here
specifically, but like just
no,
this
but
idea
like
of like
you
the powers that
personally,
be.
yeah, you personally can't make a change. You can't prevent things from happening.
But also, it's reflected in all of their lives. Like they're very set; they can't change. And I didn't think it was so sad. It was like realizing who you are and the reality of what you want to do is pretty freeing. I didn't associate it with Nazis.
Yeah, and I sort of like, I did think the ending was kind of, maybe not bleak, but I guess tragic in the way for Sally specifically, that she was choosing to stay in her life as it is, knowing that nothing good is necessarily going to come. Obviously us, the audience, knowing nothing good is going to come because the war is here, but also that she'll never make it and be a famous person, but she's sort of choosing to keep trying because she doesn't want to let go of her dream. So I think it was always kind of sad in that way, and kind of almost like a ironic sadness where it's like she wants to stay and do the cabaret because that's what makes her happy, but that will never bring her what she really wants, like her dream of like fame and luxury and all that stuff.
But going to England would have been worse.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that version is only better in the sense that you're not in Berlin during the war. But she could also have gone anywhere. She could get on a train and go anywhere in Europe right now and chill.
Oh,
go home to the States.
I was going to say, she's American. Go home.
I just remembered how shitty her dad is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's such an absentee guy.
10 words or whatever on the telegram.
Yeah, wow, yeah, sorry. So, like, she's constantly working through her daddy issues, looking for someone to take care of her and give her the attention she never got. It's very, very obvious when you think about it.
I did like the little moments of humanity that we saw from her when she was kind of let her guard down just ever so slightly. That was one of those moments. And I did feel for her at the end with deciding to have the abortion. She had kind of built this up, but like, you know, trying to convince herself that she wanted. Like, I felt for her, and I felt for Brian too, honestly. It was...
Yeah, like, I mean, you leave feeling kind of just a little bit sad for both of them, but also like, yeah, that's the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like Brian was always going to go back to England and have that kind of life, and then Sally was never going to have that kind of life. So you always knew that they were going to part ways.
And they always seemed, even she says it, like they seemed more like friends even in the beginning. Like even though they slept together a bunch, they had a buddy relationship. Friends with benefits, really. And so when they left, it wasn't some big heartbreak. It was just like, yeah, okay, this is done.
Yeah, it was just like chapter closed.
Yeah.
Well,
the one other thing we could talk about a little bit is the shocking violence of Nazis against random people, which really surprised me. I was not expecting it at all. Like the club owner, I think, if this is correct, I was a little bit confused about who was who. But the club owner like kicks out some Nazis, and then later that night he's like closing up, and they like kill him.
I think they just beat him up, but I guess
Okay.
it's not specified.
It's a very vicious beating,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very weird to see it unexpectedly contrasting with the like dancey dance singy sing. So they did that really well. But there was another scene where there was like a dead body in the street.
Yeah.
Did anyone
Yeah.
understand what that was, or did they not explain it at all?
They didn't explain it. It was just, like, I assume a random Jewish business owner who was killed. And it's, like, just kind of showing that this is happening, this is going on in the background, and our characters aren't really caring or connecting with it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And especially, like, if we're assuming the club owner wasn't killed and Brian wasn't killed, they were just beat up by the Nazis, then the fact that this person was killed, I'm assuming it's not that they were just someone being mean to the Nazis, but they were someone the Nazis wanted to kill.
Yeah.
That is probably the most upsetting part of the movie. And I know it's supposed to be. And it's
Yeah.
not groundbreaking to say that, but it's such a creepy, weird part that it definitely achieved the goal of making me uncomfortable. And then I didn't like that we're supposed to flip back into like superficial, vapid world. And I was like, okay.
I think you experience the exact emotions that they're going for. You know what I mean? This, like, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable, and then you're supposed to theoretically, right, enjoy the fun and have the fun, but then you start to feel a little guilty for having had the fun because there's all this bullshit going on that you should probably be paying attention to.
Guess who's Austin's favorite?
I was just gonna say, Jackie's the favorite this week. I don't like it.
It feels good.
Well,
I'm gonna start sucking up to Austin.
I know that it's not like wasn't necessarily a fun viewing experience for Jackie, but it feels like it was like an effective one in the sense that like the movie.
How do you like me now, Jen?
At least Jackie saw the gorilla. Like, if that's where the bar is, then
I'm sorry I'm the dunce this week.
I can't think of anything else I wanted to bring up. I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah. A little bit on like the filming of it. They filmed this in Germany. Originally Bob Fosse wanted to recast everyone. He really didn't want Joel Grey to be the MC, and he eventually told the studio like it's him or me, and they were like, we want Joel Grey. But yeah, they filmed in at least part of it in Munich. A lot of the sound stages were filmed in the same sound stage that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory had just vacated, so that's fun. Most of the dancers and like side characters were German. Also, Fosse was a dick. We know this. Fosse's a dick. He did the thing that I hate when directors do because he's like, oh, an actor can't possibly act. He felt like he couldn't get a realistic reaction out of the actress that played Natalia whenever she opens the door to discover her dog's dead body on the ground. And so he went to the butcher and got a package of bloody intestines to put there instead. And I'm like, let her do her damn job, Bob. Anyways.
Uncool.
Right?
Also, that would be a totally different reaction. If I opened the door expecting, like, as an actor, being like, and this is the scene where I see my dead dog, I would act. And if I opened the door and saw, like, a pack of bloody butcher's meat, I'd be like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not as upsetting or personally touching when it's just a clod of meat.
Yeah, like, that would take you out of it more than giving you... I mean, I'm not an actor. What do I know?
It worked. I mean, sad to say his methods worked. She looked sad.
Yep. But yeah, no, it was, like I said, it was filmed in Germany, so it sounds like I know Liza Minnelli talked a lot about, like, trying to talk to locals, just about, not necessarily about Hitler and the rise of fascism, but, like, just trying to get a sense of, like, what things were like. For costumes, for example, they were trying to find authentic costumes, and it was, like, impossible to track any down because it's just so hidden and like compartmentalized at the time, and they had a hard time getting any information out of German locals that just for not wanting to talk about it, which like totally understandable. But I think they ended up getting a lot of the costumes from France, like vintage store or thrift stores from France.
And I can imagine trying to like source those things, going around and being like, do you have anything from 1930s here in Berlin? And they'd be like, no, the city was like in ruins.
Yeah.
My house was burnt down. Like,
yeah, true. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Do you have any quotes, Jackie?
I have a couple. Yeah. I find a lot of what Sally says annoying, but quotable. She always says she's a strange and extraordinary person, which to me is like the biggest red flag that she is not. I love when Fritz says, God damn it, I think I'm falling in love with her. And Brian goes, I'm so sorry. And he goes, so am I. It's not a good thing. I also like when, I think Brian says it, but he goes, femme fatale? You're about as fatale as an after dinner mint.
Yes.
I also said that she screams out, God damn it, I'm going to have a baby. Very dramatic. I love that she says, stop being so British. Which is my one note for that guy. He's so British. What else did she say? I liked when she was talking to Natalia. So Natalia's so upset. And Liza Minnelli, you can tell, is like, mostly wants to leave, but is also trying to give some advice somehow. And she goes, my God, it's enough to drive a girl into a convent. Do they have Jewish nuns? And she says a couple good things too. She's like, I'm going to be a big film star if the booze and sex don't get me first. So it's like, yeah, it's going to get you first. Okay, that's it. That's all the quotes.
Yeah.
Pretty good ones. I mean, the dialogue was, there's some snappy moments. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked when they're having the first like meeting of Natalia and Fritz, and Sally's there, and it just turns into this like hang. First of all, I like when Natalia is like, she's talking about phlegm and she pronounces it wrong, and then she's like, but why are they putting the G in phlegm? And I was like, why are they putting the G in phlegm? Anyways, and then they're like eating, and he goes to offer Natalia food, and she's like, I'm not eating between meals. And then no one offers Sally anything, and Sally's like, I am eating between meals. And I related to that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this whole episode was me talking about trivia, but the budget was 4.6.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Did we skip high points and low points?
Yes, we did. We just jumped right to the end.
Should we do them after or now?
Let's just do them. Let's do them now.
Okay.
Didn't we do this last week where we
Yes,
skipped
we did.
something too? Are we
Bad
do we
at
know how to
this.
do our jobs?
Clearly not. As is my wont, I wrote down my high and low point, so I will go first if you don't mind.
Yep.
My high point when Brian spastically kicks the Nazi flag over. Very enjoyable. He is not a kicker. He is not an athlete, but he kicks that flag with quite a lot of strength, and I respect it. And then my low point was the MC. I wrote creepy. Now I know that I'm correct and have experienced the movie properly, unlike some people. But he was still my low point. The guy creeped me out. And that's it. I didn't like him. I didn't want him there. Because I understand movies.
Shut up.
The end.
So my high point, kind of like you were saying, Austin, this movie kind of like hits differently now in the sad world that we live in. But I found myself really relating to all those moments where Brian was like, guys, this seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should care a little bit more. And everyone else was like, I don't think it'll matter. And I think someone says something along the lines of like, oh, the Nazis will take out the communists and then we'll just deal with the Nazis. And he's like, can you deal with the Nazis? And I was like, I don't know. I just was like, I relate to this. I understand this. This is the frustration I think anyone who's been paying attention to politics has been having for the past, like, 10 years or so of being like, these guys seem bad. Like, the Tea Party, not good. And now it's like QAnon, not good. Like, literal storming the Capitol, not good. Like, it just kind of keeps progressively getting worse and worse. And you're just like, we're all just Brian being like, can we deal with this maybe?
Yeah.
Anyone see that back there?
Whew,
So-
Jen, that's dark. I mean, you're correct.
And
I
that's her
believe it,
high
but-
point.
Yeah, sorry, but that is my high point. That is the aspect of the movie that I connected with. My low point is the part I did not connect with, which was the music. I now understand that it made more sense and that I should have paid closer attention. So it was my planned low point. But now that Austin has explained it to me, I think the low point might just be that I'm dumb as rocks.
I am so happy that's not me this week. It's never not me. I'm so happy.
I've never felt dumb doing this podcast. Like, even if we disagree or if I don't like the things that you like, I always feel like I understand movies. I watch a lot of movies. I know what's going on. No, I'm a fucking moron.
Not me, not me. Yay.
So my low point is my low IQ.
Oh my gosh.
Austin?
My high point is we didn't even talk about it. I love Mine Hair, the song Mine Hair. I think it's just a banger of a song. I'm obsessed with the chair choreography. That's a really surface level high point because that song really is just a cabaret song, but I love it. So that's my high point. It was my high point on Pennies from Heaven. I just love music reflecting back on you and music being used in different ways. That's not just people bursting into song. That was what Bob Fosse wanted to avoid. He did. Jen did not get that, but that's okay. Just the whole concept of that I really like. My low point on the flip side of that is I wish there were more songs. I'm sad that they cut so many songs. This is where I'm conflicted about this movie because the movie has displaced the stage show in terms of popularity and like kind of pop culture, the zeitgeist. See, I speak German. But they have this like weird symbiotic relationship kind of. Like, so when the movie came out, Mine Air was written for the movie. Maybe this time was written it was written for an older show, but it was put into the movie. It wasn't originally in the stage show. She had a different song called Don't Tell Mama. And then the Money song was written for the movie. 3 of the biggest songs that like the average person might actually have heard before or were put in for the movie and not in the show originally. But since the movie came out, they've all been reworked into the show. So it's like they're all now in the Broadway show, which I find interesting. Like I can't think of another example of that really happening, where it's like they just work together. And there's all these different. I was looking through the Wikipedia page of the stage show, and there's so many different productions of it, and they all have different workings of the songs. Like some have some numbers, some have others, and it's just like this weird, like hodgepodge. I guess I like that. Like I like that it kind of grows and develops with every iteration of it, but it's just like this very strange thing that I'm very torn on.
I do, even though I just said my low point was that I didn't want there to be songs, I do agree with you that if there had been more songs, I feel like it would have worked better, because I think I was struggling with the fact that it didn't feel like a musical, because there was only just a couple numbers thrown in at random, whereas if there had been more of it, I would have been like, yes. Whereas I was just like, okay, I'm focused on the story, and I don't need these, like, 5 songs throughout the movie. But if there had been like 15, maybe it would have been like, okay, this is a musical. I know I need to pay attention to the songs.
I think you should watch it again.
Yeah. I've seen it twice, as I mentioned. This was not my first viewing. I still missed the entire thing.
I love this so much.
I think just me and Cabaret, we're not friends.
You and Austin aren't friends either.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I guess we did quotes. So trivia. The budget was $4.6 million and the box office was $42.8 million. So Sally Bowles was based on Jean Ross, who was an actress, singer, and a writer who worked as a cabaret singer during in Weimar, Berlin. She was supposedly not as vulgar as Sally and did take issue with that representation. She was also a member of the Communist Party and a war correspondent in the Spanish Civil War.
So she's 1,000 times cooler than Sally.
Yeah, and her partner was Claude Cockburn, who was the grandfather of Olivia Wilde.
Interesting.
Right? So this movie holds the record for winning the most Oscars without winning Best Picture. It won 8 Oscars, but lost Best Picture. Do you guys know to what? This was kind of an iconic year, the Oscars.
I do, because I already looked it up.
Yeah.
72, you say?
Yeah.
As if that makes a difference to me.
So it was The Godfather. Other fun facts about Oscars and such. Joel Grey is one of the very few actors to win a Tony Award and an Oscar for the same role, because he also won Best Featured Actor for the Tonys.
Who are the others?
Okay. Yul Brynner had. That's fun. Anne Bancroft.
The King and I.
Rex Harrison for My Fair Lady, Joel Grey, Helen Mirren, Viola Davis for Fences. This is number 63 on AFI's Greatest Movies of All Time list. 5 of the songs that were removed from the musical, but were sort of in the movie. They played on the radio in the movie, which I was happy to see because I thought I was going insane when I heard them. And I was like, I know the song, but I don't know those songs particularly well. So, yeah, that's pretty much all, I think. Oh, the ABC edited out that I Do, So Do I scene, the confrontation where they realize they've both been sleeping with Maximilian. They edited that out of the TV premiere in 1975, which really did not go over well with like film critics and just like the general public, because it's also like pretty shitty treatment of an Oscar-winning film. I don't know. And so they reinstated it after that, but
Good.
yeah.
Also kind of like important to the plot, you know?
Right? If
Just a
nothing
tad.
else.
So anyway, 1972, Austin already mentioned The Godfather came out that year. That was kind of the biggest movie of the year in terms of both Oscars and box office. Other movies that are notable from that year are Deliverance, The Poseidon Adventure, which I love. Have you guys
Me
seen
too.
this?
Yes.
Yes!
So good.
Love a disaster movie. Also, I just thought this was notable. This was the year Deep Throat came out and was like a top box office pornography film. Very random moments in American film history. Ratings?
Ratings. I guess I'll go. I put for enjoyment 6 out of 10.
Okay.
So I enjoyed it, but I think it suffered in my mind because I didn't understand some of it. Like I obviously missed some big plot points. Not as many as Jen, but a few. But like for me at least, I figured them out as the movie progressed, whereas Jen didn't see an entire gorilla. So I mean, it's just apples and oranges.
What is going on?
I will say I enjoyed it though. Like I enjoyed some of the music. I enjoyed the relationships, and I liked seeing how they fell apart. And it wasn't a tragedy, you know, like some relationships just aren't meant to work out, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. It was a different kind of story, so I enjoyed it. I was interested in what was going to happen to all these people. Although at the end, I was left feeling very sad because I'm like, all your lives are over. So that's cool. And then for quality, I also gave it a 6 out of 10 because I really liked the apartment set. I didn't so much like the Kit Kat Club because I think it's supposed to feel like a seedy, gross club, right?
Yeah,
like you don't like it. I didn't want to be there. And I didn't like the mirrors either. And I didn't get their symbolism. I was just like, I don't like seeing that. But when they're at all these, like the apartment, when they're doing rich things with Max, like that's fun to watch. It's nice. And the sets were cool and interesting and well done. So quality wise, I was giving it a 6 out of 10 for the sets. I don't really have a judgment on the music. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know where to rank this, honestly. Enjoyment level, I'll say, was pretty low-ish. I thought there was parts of it that was kind of boring. Like I mentioned, there's not a whole lot going on. But I did like the story of kind of, you know, people trying to live their lives as the country is falling. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. So I'd give it like a 4 or a 5 for enjoyment. And again, with the caveat that apparently I slept through half the movie. And then for quality, I think it's a well-made movie. I think the actors all do a good job. The costumes are pretty cool. There's, like Jackie said, there's really good like production design and sets look cool. So I guess quality-wise, I'll give it like a 7. No real complaints for it on that front. It just, like I said, me and Cabaret were not friends. We didn't connect.
All right, fair enough. My ratings, I think, for enjoyment, like a 9. I really do like the music, and I've been listening to it on repeat since I watched it. And then for quality, I don't know. I think it is well made. There's parts of it that I wish were done differently, maybe. But I do think it's a good adaptation for a completely different medium. I think Bob Fosse was really aware that he wasn't making a Broadway show, and was able to adapt it for like a film audience. So even if it's not necessarily to my taste necessarily, like I would like more music. I would like those kind of musical cliches sometimes. But I mean, I think it's definitely a well-made movie. So I'm going to give it 9. 9's all around.
All right.
That friendometer, though.
Do we dare?
No.
Do we dare?
My friendometer is really green. Please still like me.
I would like individual Austin friendometer ratings. I don't want to be brought down by Jen's rating.
All right, let me have it.
I mean, it's orange.
Oh, danger! You're in the danger zone. What about me?
I think we're green, Jackie.
Yay!
My first note, I can show you, is literally Jackie's gonna hate the MC. And then I wrote, but I'd like to dive into why.
So predictable. Love it. Love being so easy to know. I'm green. I also want to be orange with Jen, though, because...
What did I do to you?
This was the episode that broke me, by the way.
I just want to kick you when you're down, just like, dude.
Broke you, Austin. This episode broke me.
I
You all
feel
hate
fantastic.
You
The
watched
moment
some
when
weird gorilla movie that I did not see.
The moment when I realized that you guys didn't catch on to the role of the music at all is the saddest I've ever been making this podcast.
It's so funny because Austin texted me like the picture of the notebook that you mentioned where you like highlighted all the concept musicals, and I remember looking at it and being like, I wouldn't count Cabaret a concept musical, but whatever. And now I'm like, oh. If I had said that at the time, maybe I could have saved myself some embarrassment, and Austin would have been like, oh, well, because the songs are reflecting the plot. And then I would have been like, yes, I guess I just didn't understand the definition.
Rewatch.
I totally understand that the movie did this.
Yes, I am on board. Also, I would like a promo of all the different times Austin like covered her face or like
the whole time, every time I spoke.
Oh gosh, what are we doing next week?
Oh no, it's a
Whose
Jen
turn
pick,
is it?
isn't it?
Oh, it's my turn.
The way
Okay.
her eyes just lit up.
Fuck you both.
Oh no! We're green, Jen. We're green. Please don't.
No, you guys just bullied me for a whole episode. We're gonna watch Saw.
Oh fuck, okay.
Oh no! I've been avoiding watching this movie my entire life.
I have been meaning to rewatch it, so this is a perfect opportunity. And you guys already hate me, so you'll be fine with some blood and guts.
I don't know about that.
All right, so that, I guess, wraps us up for Cabaret. I still had a good time, even though I'm mad at Jen. And then...
Me too.
If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we are at I Hate Your Taste, or on Instagram, I Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website. It's IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com. And there are links there to our merch. And we're also on Buy Me a Coffee. If you'd like to show us any support, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com/IHateYourTaste. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It's really, really helpful. And see you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.